That's quite a send right there.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not a huck to flat. It's about time I got back to Capitol Forest. I didn't realize how many trails there are on the north side of this place. I mean, of course, there are the 3 I've already reviewed, the ones that are accessible from the actually currently closed shuttle road. The road that starts at the motocross track, that one's closed right now. But there are a few more trails. Some of them are even on the map. Not all of them. Actually, there's a bunch of stuff in here that's not on the map that I don't know about. But here's a couple more trails that are on the map. The 3 trails I'm going to talk about in this review are Low Key, Loki, and Mr. Bones. The access to these trails is via Summit Lake Lane. Heading west on Highway 8, you'll see a turn lane on the left here. Just trust Google Maps on this one since it doesn't look like the turn lane will materialize until you're like right on top of it, but it does. Actually, shuttling this trail system involves a lot of faith in both Google or Apple Maps and trail forks because none of the trailheads are obvious from the road. Using trail forks as your guide, you're going to want to park your car at the bottom of Mr. Bones while you follow me up the road to the bottom of Mr. Bones in this video. This is a great time for me to remind you to navigate to patreon.com/voiceovertrails if you want to support more informational content like this. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't already. Make sure you've got trail forks downloaded and updated on your phone because a turn-by-turn guide will not help you here. Now, you can just pedal up the road if you want, but if you're shuttling this, you need to have a navigator in the passenger seat because the trailheads are not visible from the road. This kind of almost seems to be on purpose. The first trail we rode as part of this shuttle was Low Key. Low Key is an expert level trail that descends 550 feet in a half mile, and there is nothing low key about how this trail rides. There is plenty of room for argument about trail ratings, but on first ride, I wasn't sure if the distinction between black for advanced or red for double black or expert was really all that useful. I mean, when I jumped into this trail, yeah, it's really steep and it's challenging. I'm not disputing that. But then again, it does have like this epic send, right? But you can kind of go to the right of that send and you can get off your bike. You can walk your bike down it. So it is possible to ride the rest of the trail without sending that. So does that one feature make it really an expert trail? I mean, I've always kind of wondered that. Like, shouldn't it be expert if there's no way to safely get down the trail unless you can ride every bit of it? And if the ridden parts are like inherently dangerous and like, I don't know. I feel like there's like a line between if it's a mandatory feature and a not a mandatory feature, but then what does mandatory mean? Anyway, let's move on. It's very steep. The lines aren't always obvious if it's your first time riding it. And this video is my first time riding this, but man, this trail was so much fun. It's fairly loose, relentlessly steep, and feels very, very hand built. Everything flows as long as you've got the appropriate bike handling skills to make it flow. There are strategically placed catch berms everywhere that you need them to be. You'll still need though really good cornering skills, intermediate jumping skills at least, and be able to bunny hop to successfully ride this trail. It's not like you're going to actually use the bunny hop specifically, but you need that ability to carry the bike frame with you, if that makes sense. There are a lot of hucks into steep corners and features that require quick reactions. There's not a lot of time to think. You just need to have some instinctual bike handling skills in order to successfully ride this. I think I've just talked myself into acknowledging that, yeah, this is an expert trail. I mean, like, you know what the distinction should be is that, like, if it's safer to ride the expert feature than it is to try to walk down it or walk the bike around it, I think that's what would make it an expert trail. And I think this one does, yeah, it fits that distinction. Like, these features can't be avoided safely. The best way to ride this trail is to be able to ride this kind of stuff safely. And almost as soon as you started, the trail ends here on Loki, as in like the demon god Loki, which is a Moto trail. So turn left on Loki. You're going to gain a few hundred feet of elevation on Loki, which, like most Moto trails, undulates a lot and has a lot of climbing in it, but it's in good shape. It isn't rutted out or super muddy or anything, so you won't have to dismount from the bike to ride it. So after like a mile or so of pretty boring just Moto trail transfer, you'll end up back out on this logging road. Turn right on the logging road to find this very nondescript entrance to Mr. Bones on the right. This too seems somewhat intentionally hidden. I guess the trail gets its name from the animal bones strewn about the entrance. I couldn't figure out, these are big bones too. I couldn't figure out if like it's a cow or an elk. I don't actually know my animal skeletons that well, but maybe somebody who has some hunting experience could clear up the confusion in the comments. Mr. Bones is 1 mile long and descends 750 feet, and it is no less fun than low-key. It isn't quite as steep, so it's definitely comfortably in the black category. The distinctions as far as difficulty do make sense here. This place is basically drop city with root step-downs everywhere, tight turns, and appears to be pretty raw and hand-built. There's root waterfalls and lots of compound features that require a lot of integrated skills to navigate. By integrated skills, I mean that, like, you have to use more than one skill at the same time in order to successfully execute or get through a feature. So it can't just be cornering, it's like going to be cornering and jumping at the same time or something like that. The forest that it travels through is regenerating clear cut that's probably about 15 to 20 years old, so it gives it a very tight and dark feel. At this stage of the forest growth process, all the trees are super duper tight together since they haven't done any thinning yet. Then the trail breaks out into a very recent clear cut where there are views of the southern tip of the Sound as well as Summit Lake. Not that you should be looking at those views, as you'll be watching the trail, which hasn't gotten any less exciting as now the surface is much looser from the sun baking off the moisture. The tight turns are all still there, but it's a lot easier to hold your speed through this clear cut than it is on the upper section of the trail. Make sure you keep your speed up though, because there's this surprise drop that sort of just appears out of nowhere. It's like, I think it's like 6 feet. If you don't see it coming and you carry speed through it, you'll be fine, but if you approach it with caution, you will not be fine. Then the trail jumps back into a younger section of trees and gets tight, twitchy, and rooty again. This is just so raw. I love this kind of riding. There's some real pucker factor under the trees here. I wouldn't want to have to ride this trail wet because there are a lot of these routes and a lot of them are kind of sideways, but man, what a ride. Mr. Bones is rad. Once you get to this chunk of old road, you're done. That's it. Over in a flash. I mean, it goes fast, but it's worth it. If you're an advanced to expert rider, ride these trails. You will not be disappointed. Do not bring your beginner friends on this trail. Okay, you were warned now. Don't bring your intermediate friends. Not even some of your advanced friends. Like, be really, really judicious about who you tow into this. I'd like to take this moment to thank all of my Patreon supporters, especially my Loamy Goodness level sponsors Andy Suery, Charles Kim, Damon Corey, and Randy Relithford. I'd also like to thank my Hero Dirt level sponsors earning their special mention at the end of this video: Bryce Ulrich, Dave P&W, Devin Young, Edward Lanton, Heather von Valkenburg, Jason Moore, and Pedro Cantorini. If you'd like to become part of the bones of this informational resource, just like the fine folks making up this list of supporters, navigate to patreon.com/voiceovertrails and sign up to make a contribution today. Now, get out there and go ride your bike.